Good morning for the good afternoon for most of the people that are already in this webinar. We are just letting everybody in. I see some very familiar names, so happy you have joined. We're going to start in a few minutes. We are already here with the group of persons that are going to present today. So thank you again for the companies that have joined. We're going to wait a few more minutes for everybody to arrive, but very happy to see familiar names here with us today. Thank you again for joining. Just a few more minutes. I know we're 5 minutes late, but we are still waiting for a few more persons, although I think most of the confirmed and key persons for today are already here. Well, thank you once again. We're going to start this webinar. My name is Jan-Willem van Bokhoven of the Holland House. Thank you once again for joining. For most people, good afternoon. You have joined from the Netherlands. Some of you have joined from Peru or from other countries in the region. So for you, good morning. Thank you once again for joining this webinar. We're going to start. And we're going to talk today about the life science and health sector in Peru. And we're going to talk about the opportunities for Dutch companies. I know, and looking at the persons that are here with us today, I see Spectator has joined, I see Philips has joined, I see Nea has joined, I see Elsevier, I see Erasmus. So many familiar names and faces. Thank you once again for joining. We want this webinar to be interactive. So before we start, just some quick notes. We will share all presentations with you. So no need to take notes about what is being shown on the screen. You're going to get all the presentations. You're also going to receive the study, because this webinar is actually to present the study that has been executed in the past months. So you will all get the full report. So also, please note from the beginning, you will, since you have joined today, you will be the first companies actually to receive the report. And the other important note is that we would like to be this also interactive. So please, all questions, doubts, the chat is open. So please let us know your questions the moment they arise, and we will try to answer during this webinar. Thank you once again in name of the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Lima, also in name of RVO, Netherlands Enterprise Agency, also in name of Task Force Healthcare, which have organized this event together. And before continuing, I would like to give the floor to Nathalie Lindveld, Ambassador for the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia. Nathalie, thank you for joining.
Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of our team at the Embassy in Peru, I would like to welcome you to this seminar. Today we will present to you the results of a study on market opportunities for Dutch companies in the health and life sciences sector in Peru. Can you hear me well, Jan-Willem? Yeah? Okay.
Perfectly.
Perfect. The study was conducted by Holland House Colombia and the Task Force Healthcare with support from the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, RVO. And it represents a joint effort to expand the market for Dutch companies and entrepreneurs. Peru is an amazing country, full of opportunities, but it is also full of challenges and difficulties. Over the past year, but even also before that, we've seen a political stalemate between government and parliament, low capacity of government institutions, a lack of transparency, and a high level of bureaucracy. And all that, of course, makes it more difficult to do business in Peru. Hence, we highly recommend you to team up with a local partner who knows how things work in the country, and to start early with the lengthy product registration processes. Of course, all the entrepreneurs who have exported to other parts of the world before, they're quite familiar with these problems, because it's not only Peru, but many other countries where you have to take these kinds of advices in mind when doing business as well. In Peru, about 10% of the 32 million inhabitants have access to very good healthcare at a level which is comparable to that in the Netherlands. However, the other 90% who cannot afford private insurance, they are in a very different situation. The pandemic has painfully shown over the past 2 years the weakness of the Peruvian health system, resulting in very high death rates. It is also the reason that now everybody in Peru, both public and private partners, are convinced that a lot more investment is needed in the health system. The government has allocated a lot of budget to the construction of new clinics and hospitals throughout the country. And the private healthcare sector is also investing a lot in expansion and modernization. As you will see in the study, the existing gaps and problems in Peru also generate opportunities for Dutch companies. For example, the Netherlands has made great progress in telemedicine and digitalization of health service. And in a country that is geographically complex and difficult to access, telemedicine is a concrete and effective solution for accessing medical consultations, healthcare, and remote monitoring for a wide range of illnesses. The Netherlands also has a lot to offer in terms of medical equipment for physical therapy, rehabilitation, prosthetics, and orthotics. In the coming 2 decades, the 65+ segment of the population will double in size. And of course, the elderly will require assistance to deal with the illnesses and mobility complexities that come with age. We believe that in Peru, there are market opportunities in both the public and the private sector. Many private clinics also plan to modernize their infrastructure and equipment, especially in the care of cardiovascular diseases. Well, there's a lot more to highlight from the study, but I will leave that up to the Holland House, because they will give you some more details in their presentation. And of course, our embassy team is there to support you, to find contacts and partners that you need to enter the Peruvian market. And I wish you all a fruitful meeting and lots of success. And I hope we will see each other in Peru. Best of luck.
Thank you very much, Nathalie Lindveld, Ambassador in Peru, for these words of introduction. Of course, I think a very good introduction to the life science and health sector in Peru. And we very much appreciate also the effort we have felt from you and your team, Ximena Giraldo, that is also here present, in actually bringing this sector to the agenda, because I believe, and that's also something to further discover, but I believe that if you look at Latin America, Peru is the 5th healthcare market in Latin America. If you look at the Dutch perspective, the other 4, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, have been explored, studies exist, trade missions have taken place, and that has not happened for Peru yet. So I think this study and also this webinar is very opportune in that sense, because I know you and your team are ready to help Dutch companies to also discover the opportunities in Peru. And like you mentioned, there is a market, there is developments that are really interesting. It is not an easy market, but that's also where you and your team come in to support. And I know you're very effective in supporting the Dutch company. So thank you once again for joining. Next point on the agenda would be the presentation of the study. To give you an idea of the agenda for today, we will start with the presentation of the study. After that, we will invite Jeroen Blom of RVO, who's going to present a bit more about some of the instruments that could be useful for Dutch companies willing to explore Peru. Then we go over to Cure Medical, one of the Dutch companies already active in this sector in Latin America and in Peru, who's going to share their experiences. And then we have space for Q&A. So again, all questions, please let us know. Let's start with the presentation of the study. So, so once again, about the study, if we go to the next slide, please. The study was being commissioned by the Netherlands Embassy in Peru and RVO. The study has been executed by Task Force Healthcare and Holland House. And the main objective was to do a mapping of the sector in Peru, to create a context of how the sector works, what would be the important entities, who would be the competition, but most of all, look at the challenges and find where there could be opportunities for Dutch solutions. So that was the objective of the study. The study has been executed very recently between March and May. So actually the information you will find in the document is the latest available information on the health sector in Peru. And the research, the methodology has been desk research, interviews with many stakeholders in Peru, but also in the Netherlands, because we know that in these kind of studies, we can map the demand, but if we don't match it actually to the Dutch offering, then it doesn't make that much sense. So it's interviews at both sides, and it's also a lot of consultations with external experts. In the end, for the Holland House and also for Task Force Healthcare, we have a knowledge and an understanding of the sector. But of course, to really understand where the opportunities could lie, it's also very important to have a lot of external advice. So that has also been part of the process. The next slide, please. This is about what we are. This is more or less the structure you will also find in the study documents, but this is also the structure for this presentation. We're going to talk about the key indicators, about the organization of the system, what would be the main challenges Peru is facing in the medical sector, which would be the opportunities, what do we recommend for your market entry, and what could be the most important conclusions. I'm not going to do this presentation alone. I'm just doing the introduction. Actually, the study has been done by the teams of Task Force Healthcare and Holland House. Alejandro Ibarra, he is going to present part of this presentation. Maria Camila Para is also present. They were part of the team. The next slide, please. Well, here just some important key indicators. Our ambassador already mentioned that Peru has a little more than 32 million inhabitants. Economic growth in 2021 was a bit more than 13%. Of course, after a very difficult 2020, recovery in 2021 has been quite strong. Also for this 2022, growth has been projected. But I want you to take a look most of all at the right side of this slide. Here we see the tendency in general of the life science and health sector in Peru. So the overall growth of the sector is projected at 6% per year. But if we look at how is the medical devices market and also the digitalization market going to develop in the next years, we see double-digit growth percentages for medical devices and also for digitalization. And that's why we think, like I mentioned, that Peru should be on the agenda of Dutch companies in this sector. The companies already active in Brazil or in Argentina or in Chile, they also should take a look at the Peruvian market, because we feel that the potential and the growth that is going to happen in the next years offer interesting opportunities. So these are some of the key indicators to give you an idea of where the sector is developing. At this point, I'm going to invite Alejandro Ibarra to do part of this presentation. Alejandro, thank you, and the floor is yours.
Good morning to everyone, and good afternoon to some of you. Thank you very much, William, for giving me the floor. I will now proceed to briefly describe the Peruvian health systems, some challenges identified, as well as opportunities in the sector. When talking about the Peruvian health system, we have to keep in mind that it is a decentralized healthcare system divided into the public sector and the private sector. The public sector is making health insurance subsidized by the government, aimed to the most vulnerable population. And the salud, which operates through contributions from the population with dependent work. On the private sector side, there are the service providing entities, or EPS for its Spanish acronym, as well as a variety of other types of private insurance. The pie chart of the right side of the slide, we can see the division of the market among the main private insurance companies in Peru. For example, we have Pacifico EPS and Rimac EPS together manage approximately 92% of the market, as we can see. The next slide, please. Okay. Among the most general are the political situation, the bureaucratic complexity, and the lack of domestic production. In the case of the political situation, there has been uncertainty for some time, and the election of last year, 2021, with the election of Pedro Castillo as president, triggered a greater number of conflicts and crises within the country, exacerbated by the global context and the mismanagement of the state. Regarding bureaucratic complexity, when comparing Peru with other countries in the region, we can know that it has a stricter regulatory framework, and it generates delays and hinder some of the processes necessary for trade. And now, domestic production in the Peruvian medical equipment market is very marginal. Peru is an import-dependent area, and more than 90% of the medical equipment is imported. The next slide, please. One more specific challenges are the inequality between major cities and rural areas. This gap is increased by factors such as the lack of access to healthcare for people in vulnerable situations or marginalized groups, and the lack of internet access throughout the country. The next slide, please. Just there are challenges, there is a wealth of opportunities in different areas of healthcare. In the case of medical devices, there is a great demand for technological supplies and ECU furniture in Peru, such as cardiac events monitors, respirators, magnetic resonators, etc., as we can see in the slide. For this type of requirements, there are plans such as the National Plan for Comprehensive Cancer Care. This plan includes a large-scale renovation of oncological equipment. For example, we can ask where does Peru currently buy medical devices from? Well, the main suppliers are China, USA, and Germany now. The presence of countries such as Germany in the Peruvian market is a sign of the value of quality in the medical device sector. Also, the Chinese presence represents a strong competition in prices. In addition, the import value of medical devices during 2020 was almost $370 million, with a tendency to continue increasing. And the Netherlands is characterized as, okay. The Netherlands is characterized by the manufacture of high quality medical devices. So Peru, being an import dependent country, could be an interest market. As mentioned, countries such as Germany are very present in the market. Now, the next slide, please. So moving on the subject of accessibility, mobility, and vitality, there is a fact that rural health care is a challenge for access by the elderly and the disabled people. Approximately 73% of people over 60 years of age do not go to the doctor due to poor accessibility. All these led to the creation of multi-sectoral national policy on disability 2030, with the aim of improving access and reducing these negative figures. The Dutch experience in policies and services to improve the quality of life of the elderly and people with difficulties in accessing healthcare is a great advantage for entering the Peruvian market. The next slide, please. On the digitalization side, there are opportunities such as the Peruvian government's interest in digitalizing health through the digital agenda for the health sector 2020 to 2025. In addition, there are important projects in the public sector with the creation of the Centro Nacional de Telemedicina, also an opportunity for the rollout of telecommunications infrastructure due to the current lack of internet in the territory. On the other side, in the private sector, we have there is a large project of digitalization of the Clínica Internacional, which is the largest and most important clinic in the country. It's important to mention that there is a strong trend towards innovation and digital health by private sector, which represents a good opportunity for the sector. The Netherlands invested in digitalization many years before the pandemic, so its digital health system is more robust and experienced in the area, while Peru is still in the early stages. And well, because all of the previously mentioned deficiencies and because of the lack of healthcare evidence in the COVID-19 pandemic, the Peruvian health system is expanding. So next slide, please. On the hospital design and construction side, opportunities exist due to the growing trend of hospital construction projects. Salud is currently in the international bidding phase for 2 large hospitals. One is located in Chimbote in the northern Peru, the other in Piura, which is in the north too. It also has plans to build 10 more high complexity hospitals. On the side of the private sector is also expanding. For example, there is the Clínica Internacional project, which seeks to build the largest private hospital in the country. These are some examples of the different opportunities that we could observe during this study. The next slide, please. Okay, about the different projects related to the health sector, such as the construction of hospitals, digitalization, purchase of medical equipment, etc., are carried out through public and private partnerships, or PPP. These PPPs can be private or public initiative. As we can see in the graph of the left, almost 92% of the PPP projects are of state initiative. Also, we have a lot of a high number of institutions involved in the development of these projects. For example, we have the Ministry of Health, which is the most important entity in the sector. Also in the portals of the pro-inversion Peru Compras, you can see more some state projects available in the bidding or in the tendering process. And it's important to know that the Organismo Superior de Contrataciones del Estado, OSCE for its Spanish acronym, it's the entity in charge of overseeing public tenders in order to be able to access them. So in this study, you can see in more detail the requirements and steps to be part of these tenders. I will now give the floor back to John Willen so that he can continue to tell you a little more about this study.
Thank you, Alejandro, for this introduction into the way the system is organized, the main challenges Peru is facing, and also the opportunities that come out of it. Like you already showed, we see opportunities in 4 main areas, which would be medical devices, hospital build and design, mobility and vitality, and digital solutions. I saw there was a question about what is actually included in digital solutions. The central term that is being used in Peru is telemedicine, which would include most of all the initiatives making or using digital means to actually improve 2 things: coverage and accessibility. So if your company works in one of those fields using digital solutions to improve coverage or accessibility, that would be the main opportunity, I would say. Then if we look at market entry, so say looking at the 4 main opportunities we have identified, you would say, I would like to enter the Peruvian market with my technology, solutions, devices. I think there are several points that are very important to take into account. Like was already mentioned, registration processes, it's the basis for everything. So before thinking of market entry, let's think about market access. And to have market access, we should do the registration, which would be in this case with DigiMit. So very important to start process there early. And then, like Alejandro also mentioned, there's basically 2 markets. There's the private side of the market, which is rather small in Peru, but in Peru we have 5 clinics that are part of the top 50 clinics in Latin America. So we have 5 very good clinics, very innovative, looking for new technology, looking for innovation. And we think those clinics would be an important start because they are early adopters, they have the budgets. So if we would start there, we can show that our technologies actually work within the Peruvian context. So we feel that for many Dutch companies, starting in the private part of the sector could be a very good start. And then it would probably be good to start with the most modern clinics, which also visit the international trade fairs and are very much focused on bringing the latest technology to the country. But of course, then there's the public part of the sector, which is a very big and important share of the market. And if that means, of course, that that's also a very interesting part of the market. And to tap into that potential, we feel there are 2 very crucial steps, which would be Peru Compras, the central tendering portal, also known as the transparency portal, where you will find all the main tenders and processes in the bidding phase in which you could participate. And the other one would be Senares. Senares is the central unit for buying strategic health resources. So Senares, you could see it as a central purchasing organization. So actually, if you want to become a supplier of the public sector, they play a very crucial role at the central level, but also on the decentralized level. So Senares, also a very important entity to take into account. And of course, partnering with local companies might make it a lot easier, like our ambassador also mentioned. The good thing is that within the report you will all receive, there's actually a paragraph or a chapter in which we have summarized the Peruvian companies that already work with European suppliers. So they already import European technology and they distribute within Peru. So they could be your partner for the market. So in the report, there's a section where you will find all the main partners that we think would be recommendable for partnering. The next slide. Well, and actually, I think the good thing is that the group of Dutch companies that is already active in the medical sector in Peru is rather small, but there is already a group of companies active here. And these are their main recommendations to you. I think for the most of you already active in Latin America, nothing new here, but very important to take into account in the end. So Spanish is important, build relationships, crucial, partnering with local companies actually to make your market access and market entry a bit more easy, and start with product registration in time, which is of course sometimes the difficult thing for Dutch companies in Latin America, that every country has its own registration process. So if you've already done it in Brazil and Argentina, you will again need to do the registration in Peru. But in the end, you will become every time more experienced, and also if you find the right partner for the markets, they can probably help you, of course, in facilitating this kind of processes. The next slide. So they're getting to the conclusions. Already many things are mentioned. We feel that Peru is a market that should be on the priority list of Dutch companies working in Latin America, but it's also a difficult market. Also relatively or comparatively, for many of the Dutch companies already active in the continent, they also indicate that Peru is one of the more complex markets, which means that the study with a lot of tips and tricks and a lot of information, I think is a very good start actually to make the step. Then about the conclusion. So what we see at the moment is that there's very important investment going on, mainly driven by the public sector. So Alejandro mentioned the projects of salud. In total, more than 10 hospitals that are being built or are going to be built. So very important investment in the sector driven by the public sector. In the private part of the sector, we see that the main clinics are modernizing, are expanding their capacity. So also there we find important opportunities for technology and solutions. And we see that on a bigger trend, there is the digitalization of the sector, which really took off in the pandemic, but also offers a lot of opportunities in the future, because in the end, to improve coverage, to improve accessibility, important steps have to be made in Peru. Then also important to mention that there is a free trade agreement between the European Union and Peru, which actually gives a competitive advantage to Dutch suppliers. If we take a look at the current exporters, Germany was mentioned, the US was mentioned, we feel that the market share Dutch companies have in Peru is still rather limited and could be much bigger. In the part of what to do next, I think the first step would be, we're going to send you the study. Take a look at it. You will, if you work in oncology, you will find all the information about that part of it, or an introduction into oncology in Peru in the study. If you work in rehabilitation, you will find also the information for your sector there. So please all start by revising the document, revising the opportunities for your specific company. Think if you look at the sector, the public entities, Pro Inversión, Peru Compras, they are very important, Senares. So also take a look at that part of the sector. And I think also, and that's something we would really like you to analyze, the biggest event in the healthcare sector in Peru is TecnoSalud, taking place in September. So also this September, we know it's short notice, but for the companies that after reading the study and you say, I want to explore a little bit more, let's see if we can do something in TecnoSalud, or let's see if we can in any way help you to start to explore the opportunities. And that's where the embassy is elemental. Our ambassador, but also Ximena here present. Ximena is responsible for this sector within the embassy. She has a big network. She has a lot of knowledge of the sector. So she is here to help you also in the next steps. This is actually the last slide. Maybe from your side, Ximena, anything to add, or just for the people that have joined also to get to know you, because I don't want to finish without giving you the floor a moment.
Thank you, Jan-Willem, and thank you for everyone that is joining us today with the presentation of the study. As you said, and the ambassador said before, we're very happy to welcome you into the Peruvian market, and we hope that we can join forces and work together in the coming months. So please just write to me. The email is in the presentation and the study as well. I'll be happy to help you.
Thank you, Ximena. Well, the last one of the questions that was also asked, is there any trade mission to Peru planned for this sector? The answer is not yet, but we hope after today and after you read the study, there will be interest in the near future to actually take the next step, to work together to organize a trade mission or help you in an individual way of exploring the Peruvian market for your products or services. So thank you. This is the very short presentation of the study. The total document is much more extensive. The study is more than 60 pages with a lot of information of all these sub-segments within the Peruvian healthcare sector. So we hope you will read the whole report. Let us know your feedback, your ideas, next steps, and we will be there to help you. We're going to do more questions and answers at the end, but at this point, let's continue with Jeroen Blom. Jeroen Blom is Business Development Coach, Latin America at RVO, Netherlands Enterprise Agency. And Jeroen is going to tell us a little bit more if you are a Dutch company willing to take the next step in exploring the Peruvian market, which instruments of RVO could be useful. Jeroen.
Yes, thank you so much, Willem. Let me see if it all works out with the sharing. Yes, can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Very good. I'm glad to hear. So the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, while looking at all the attendance here, I don't think it needs a further introduction. We are also known as RVO. And oh, let me see. Oh, I'm sorry. I think now you can see the next one. Here are my details, and I will show them also after the presentation again. So given also the time and given the attendance here, many people already know what RVO is doing. Rijksdienst voor Ondernemend Nederland, the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. Most important things we do for the entrepreneurs available here and attending here is the funding, the networking, and also the know-how. Now, what can we offer in terms of services? I will run through, let's say, a couple of them, 5 or 6. The first one, the customized business partner support, previously known as the zakenpartner support op maat. I'm mixing here some English and some Dutch terms in between. It's a very good thing. It's a flexible service. You will be in contact with my colleague Sulan or with Angela or maybe with Camila as well. It's completely free, and together with the teams at the embassy, we can help you to find the right business partners. I will mention on all the slides also below the website, because it's like yeah, a lot of information, and so you can check the further information on rvo.nl in this case /internationaal ondernemen. Then there is SIB, which is Support International Business, previously known as Starters International Business. There are 6 options here. For example, looking to trade fair participation, market entry, coaching, knowledge and skills, also alternative markets if you have been affected by the situation in Ukraine, for example. So check it out on rvo.nl/SIB. Then DHI, well, that's a very long one. So the main thing is there is 3 modules here. First thing, demonstration. You can demonstrate a certain technology, for example, a product or a service. Then there is the feasibility studies, the so-called haalbaarheidsstudie, where you can actually show the financial feasibility to your foreign counterparts. And last but not least, the investment preparation studies, which is the I in DHI, is also very interesting. Check it out on rvo.nl/DHI. There is quite some support available. Yeah, lots of finances, so it's well worth checking this out. Already mentioned by Jan Willem, one of the follow-up opportunities, for example, is visiting a trade show like Techno Salud in this case in Peru. You can also do this together with a branch organization, for example. And if you do this, you are also eligible for extra support, which is called SME Lounge or MKB Lounge. You can apply for a network lounge together with a branch organization, I could imagine Task Force Healthcare, to visit one of those what we call new trade shows, a trade show that we might have not been present like with a very big presence before. Well, we're checking it out, especially in this business development trajectory, I believe. Then the holy grail in terms of what the support can offer is the PIB, the Partners for International Business, aiming at a long-term public-private partnership. And this is really about clustering. And I think the best way to explain how well this could work, all the activities that can be done, is by checking out one of the examples, which is called We Care Colombia. I mean, it's already being done in Colombia right now. Several of us here at the screen have experience with this project. So why not Peru, I would say. Well, we're checking this out is also one of the follow-up opportunities. Then there's a special one, which has a short deadline, the 30th of June. The so-called Oranje Handelsmissiefonds deadline will close. So if you are an entrepreneur and you would like to win, this is a contest, you would like to win a full year of intensive support from us, from EY, also from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, from Evo Venedex, from UPS, on logistics, on customs, on business development, this is well worth participating in. And you can see more on oranjehandelsmissiefonds.nl, to say it in proper English. And there's even more, particularly interesting, the so-called BAR, and that's rvo.nl/bar, the Brexit Adjustment Reserve. It's quite a technical system, so check it out on the website. But the main thing to remember is if you have been affected by Brexit in one way or the other, there's at the moment like a big pot of funds available from the European Union. So it's really well worth checking this out as well. Also, we're currently recruiting companies, so check it out. And you can even start this summer by getting completely free business development courses, cultural training, and later in September, there will be like even a further step in this project. And later on, you might even be eligible for like actual financial compensation if you've been affected by Brexit. In this interesting life sciences and health development trajectory, I would like to mention our team TIO, which is Team Internationale Organisaties, or Team International Organizations. They can support you if you would like to do business, for example, with the UN, the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, and that can be particularly interesting maybe for hospital build and for those kind of opportunities. Well, normally I say a last but not least, but there's again and again a last but not least. Financing, very key also here. Invest International, our colleagues, please make sure to be in touch with them, for example, for the Dutch Good Growth Fund, which is open to Peru. This instrument has moved from RVO to our colleagues from Invest International. And like you can see on the screen, we invest in Dutch solutions for global challenges. Well, I think that what we're discussing here completely fits in here. So well worth being in touch with them as well. Obviously, rvo.nl/Peru is a good starting point for general information on doing business with the country. You can also contact me, also, of course, Ximena, also the Holland House Colombia team. We're there for you. So if you are like a little bit dazzled by all the web addresses and all the options, just send me a message. It can be an email, a call, a WhatsApp, a LinkedIn, and I'll make sure to guide you through the right channels. We always promise to bring you in touch with the right person to help you further. That's it from my side. I'm giving back the floor now to some interesting insights, I think, from a company.
Thank you, Jeroen. Great that you also presented in a nutshell the main instruments of RVO. I think very clear and very applicable to the opportunities we have presented. So thank you for joining, and I know you're always available for questions or clarifying a little bit more to specific companies. Indeed, we're going to continue with Anne Heckman. She is Business Development Manager for Cure Medical. She couldn't join in person, so she sent us a very nice video. And she's going to tell us a bit more about her experience in Peru. They are one of the Dutch companies that have already been working in Peru for a longer period of time. So she's going to share her experiences, recommendations. So please all enjoy her video.
Hello, everybody, and yes, thank you so much for having me today. I'm afraid I can't be with you live today because I'll be on holiday by the time you listen to this. But yes, my name is Anne Hedman-Weston, and I work for Cure Medical in international business development, and I look after South America, Middle East, Africa. Cure Medical, we are a manufacturer of absorbable hemostats. These are Class 3 implantable devices which are used in surgery to stop bleeding, and once the bleeding has been controlled, they stay inside the body and they're fully absorbed afterwards. And our company was founded in 1995, so we've been around for quite some time, and all our facilities are in Assendelft, and we export to over 60 different countries these days, and we work with distributors. So we use the distributor model as our route to the international market, and our presentation today will be focused on that model as well. And as a European manufacturer, we are of course CE and ISO certified, and we have regulatory clearance in countries around the world. Sorry. So as for our activities in South America, as you can see, we've been active in South America for quite some time, and these days a significant chunk of our business is generated in South America. So strategically, it's an important region for us. And you can see we are active in most of the major markets these days. So Brazil and Argentina, of course, the top two, also Chile, Paraguay, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, and Ecuador. And I've been asked to zoom in on Peru today. So first of all, medical devices are subject to registration, and there's currently a delay in processing those. So just to give you an example, we started registering one of our latest products at the beginning of 2020, and we're still nowhere near completion. So I think by the time it will finally go through, it will be about 3 years. So it's important, if you're thinking or considering Peru as a market right now, it's important that you consider at least 1 to 2 years for that clearance to go through. Then Peru historically also has been a very price sensitive market, and the pandemic has just increased the pressure on hospital budgets. So that's important to bear in mind. And even though Peru still imports, I think it's 97% of the medical devices they use are imported. A big chunk of those are actually coming from Asia. So again, as a European manufacturer, it's important to find your space in the market. And it's definitely not a market for all. So adoption for innovation, we found, is relatively slow, and you need to assert a lot of pressure. So it's important to conduct market research before you actually start the registration with your partner, just to avoid wasting any time. And logistically, it's also quite a difficult market to cover as a whole. So that's, of course, a discussion you have to have with your distribution partner. However, we found that because Peru is less dynamic than some of the other markets like Colombia, Chile, Brazil, Argentina, we found that once you're actually in the market, it's very difficult to lose that business. So for us, Peru has actually been quite a stable market. So yeah, we consider this one of the benefits in Peru. And then when we come to South America as a whole, it's important to consider that it's not a homogeneous market. So every market is different. And one of the reasons is the complexity of registrations, because apart from Chile, every single market requires separate regulatory clearance. And this is one of the reasons why we find competitors in one market that we do not find in another, or we export a huge amount of one product type into one market, which is not used at all in another. So we found that every single market in South America has been different. So it's very important in terms of your strategy that you're open-minded about those different characteristics. And just some pointers for some of the markets. As I said, Chile is currently the only one that accepts the e-mark, so it's possible to start exporting straight away if you do have a local partner. But because it's an open market, it's very competitive and quite crowded. But it is quite a vibrant market, so and they are very open to innovation. So it's often considered the gateway for European manufacturers to enter Latin America. And it's of course of huge benefit if you do have some local references that you can, for example, if your product is used in a certain hospital in Chile, it could be very interesting for your partners in Argentina. And yes, about Argentina, they're currently going through a financial crisis and they're suffering a shortage of foreign currency. So the government has imposed payment quotas on importers. And once they've reached this quota and they import, let's say, medical devices, the government automatically imposes a payment term of 6 months. So your importer, your distributor, will not be able to pay you for 6 months. For us, this has been a huge problem because we export huge amounts to Argentina, and waiting for those payments for 6 months is just impossible for us. So we have managed to find a way around it with our distributor, but yeah, it's very important to be aware of those restrictions in Argentina right now. They're expected to last at least until the end of this year. Then about Brazil, it's got a rapidly growing domestic manufacturing capability, and they are heavily protecting their home market. So if a device that's the same as yours is currently manufactured in Brazil, it will be very, very difficult to compete locally because heavy taxes are imposed quite heavily on those devices. Paraguay has been an eye-opener for us. So it's a very good market for us, and it's often overlooked, but it's very stable. Registrations have been going through for us quite rapidly, even though we are Class 3 device. And the hospitals really do look at quality, and they do have a stable budget. Even though it's been squeezed since the pandemic, it's still, for us right now, probably one of the most stable markets in South America. Then, as I said, we work with distributors, and just some pointers for you on distributor selection. This is of course not limited to South America, but we recommend to appoint a reputable partner that is experienced in registering medical devices, and ideally they do have experience with working in marketing high quality devices and innovation from Europe and the US, because our products manufactured in Europe will always differ from products that are manufactured in Asia in terms of pricing, strategy, etc. So you do want to work with a partner that's experienced in marketing those high-end devices. Then the sales force, it always helps if they are very experienced in your field of expertise, maybe surgery, urology, CSSD, just to make sure they have the right level of knowledge within the company to promote and sell your product. And where do you find those distributors? That's always the biggest question. So we do find them at conferences, mainly at trade shows, such as Medica. We see a huge amount of South American distributors at Medica these days. Then there's also Hospitalar and Medica, both in Brazil, but there's still more. You do get some distributors there from Argentina, Colombia, etc., but it's still very heavily focused on Brazil. And Google searches are always an option, but they would have to be in Spanish or Portuguese. And one other thing that may be useful for you in finding new partners is I actually work also for a company called Seamed, and we've just launched the first European B2B marketplace for products that are used in the hospital environment. So manufacturers can connect with high-performing distributors around the world, including Latin America, which could also be a solution for you. Then our recommendations. So speaking the language really does make a difference, particularly when we talk about product training, product knowledge, strategy, etc. Often there can be a language barrier to convey that knowledge. To be honest, I don't speak Spanish or Portuguese, and I have been finding it quite difficult at times, because usually you do find 1 or 2 people within a distribution company that do speak excellent English, but then you're fully reliant on those 1 or 2 people to convey that product knowledge regularly to the rest of the team. And sometimes you don't even know whether the right knowledge is actually given to the rest of the team. So I've been finding it quite difficult, but you know, as a small company, it's impossible to employ people that speak all languages. So, and we're still succeeding. So we've exceeded, but speaking the language does make a difference. Then you should, of course, maintain regular contact with your distributors, but please bear in mind that they do not like to be micromanaged. So with our distributors, we may have a meeting with them once or twice a year. We do, of course, have regular contact about forecasting and product shipments, orders, etc. But meetings as such to discuss strategy, yeah, they happen once or twice a year. Our focus really has been on ongoing education, so product training, especially when they have staff changes, and yeah, adjustment to the strategy as well, which may be necessary if other competitors come into the market or leave the market, etc. Then, yeah, it's very important to be flexible. What works in one market may not work in the next, as I said before, and focus on building an excellent relationship with your distribution partner, because ultimately they are the key to success. And yes, usually our first step when we do think about entering a new market in Latin America, we do look for, or we approach suitable distributors first, and then we ask them to conduct a market strategy. And based on their findings, we'll make a decision of whether it's a market for us right now or not. Yes, I think that's all for now. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope you found it useful. But if you do have any questions, feel free to contact me on ann.hegman@qrmedical.com, or you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Australia and New Zealand, and today I'll be sharing.
Thank you, Ann Heckman of Cura Medical. It was not only about Peru, but I think also the regional explanation of the difference in markets could be useful for some. But of course, the main element, I think, was her explanation about what they find in Peru, her recommendations for companies that want to start here. I'm aware that many of the companies that have joined today also work in other countries of the region. So part of what she explained might be very well known to you. But I do feel, and I feel there's several recommendations which I think could actually be useful not only for this sector but also for other sectors. So Ann Heckman, thank you very much for helping us guide and also tell us a little bit about your experience. This webinar was supposed to take an hour. We started a little bit late. We had a little bit of, I think we expanded a little bit in the presentation of the study. But I still see that most of all of the participants are still here. I understood from Frans Hermes of Spectator that he has a question about DHI. We're going to give you the microphone a moment, Frans, so you can ask your question. If the technology works well, you can ask your question live probably to Jeroen. So please, Frans.
Okay, thank you, Jan Willem. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay. Yeah, the last presentation was very nice. It also explained the heterogeneous character of the Latin American market, that what works in one country is not working in the other country. We are active in Brazil and in Colombia. And therefore, Jeroen, I would like to ask you something about the instruments that are available at RVO. And one, for example, that I came across was with the DHI. Now, we had in the past, for example, a DHI subsidy for Colombia, which worked very well to investigate the local circumstances with respect to infrastructure. We have a telehealth technology, so we would like to know what is the acceptance of the doctors and the patients on such technology, what is the infrastructure, what is the legislation, etc. And recently we tried to do the same for Bolivia. And then we got the answer that, you know, it's very doubtful that we would get the subsidy, because why would RVO give a subsidy to a company that is trying to do the same in Bolivia as they already did in Colombia? And I tried to explain that, you know, the reason that we apply for this is just because of these factors, that it is very heterogeneous, and that we would like to investigate together with our partner in Bolivia if this really works for that market. And so I just wanted to know, you know, out of principle, what is the policy of RVO on, you know, different applications for different countries, and does that really work?
Thank you, Frans. That's quite a hard question to answer in a short time. I think the best thing to do is that we be in touch bilaterally and also with one of our DHI experts, because in principle it is true that you're not supposed to get the same subsidy, maybe to do basically the same thing. But I always think in opportunities. So maybe if we look at a little bit different framing, there might be some openings, and I'm happy to explore it with you. But I would suggest, well, with your approval, to check on this bilaterally. Because maybe there's someone still also with a question on the study itself. And yeah, this might be taking a little bit too much time. If that's okay, I'll be happy to call you in a bit and check it out.
That's fine. The reason that I wanted to ask is because we also experience that every country in Latin America is different. So you're maybe doing the same, but that's what we're all doing. You know, we're all exporting knowledge or technology or whatever. So if we want to approach then a new market, then it would be logic that, you know, the instruments that are available, that you also can use them in different markets, because otherwise you only could apply once, because you're doing the same always in all the other countries. But the question is if it is acceptable in that market.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. It is not a fact that all instruments are available in all countries, but the instrument which is called DHI is available in all the countries. So that should not be a problem in this case. But yeah, probably best to give you some, let's say, some direct assistance with this. I'll be able to follow up with you, Frans. And thanks for mentioning this.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Frans. Thank you, Jeroen. I think looking at the time, I think there's also some companies, organizations that will ask their questions directly. Again, you will receive the study as soon as possible this week. And then, of course, we will be available for all questions, CIMENA, the embassy, RVO, Task Force Healthcare. But to round off this webinar, I'm going to, I see our ambassador is still here with us. I saw you affirmative during some of the presentations, but let me give you, Nathalie Lindveld, let me get back to you once again at the end of this webinar to see if you feel that everything that has been said is correct, or you missed some context in some of the points. So back to you for one more moment, Nathalie.
Thanks a lot. No, I think it's been really good and comprehensive, and I really like the presentation of the company that already has experience in Peru and also in countries elsewhere in the region. That was very useful, very practical, and also very good to see that there is interest to enter the Peruvian market, because well, as you hopefully have seen from all the presentations, there are opportunities, even though it's not the easiest market. But all of us will be very happy to help you where we can. So I wish you, all of you, lots of success, and hope to see you in Peru.
Thank you, Ambassador. Well, I think it's 4:10 in the afternoon in the Netherlands. I know it's summer has arrived to the Netherlands. So thank you all for joining. I hope you can enjoy the rest of the afternoon. We hope to see you again very soon. We hope to see you in Peru, maybe at Salud, or maybe at another moment. Thank you once again for joining. Thank you to the Embassy, RVO, Task Force Healthcare for organizing, and I hope to see you all very soon. Have a nice day, and bye-bye.